what's up guys, welcome to another video on Lightning Web Component Development series on AppXars, and this is going to be the last video in the series in which I'll show you how you can debug your Lightning Web Components. So in this video I'll show you what are the ways to debug a Lightning Web Component and how you can use it. Alright, so let's quickly start our presentation. Okay, so let's start with my introduction. So I'm Kapil Batra. I'm a Salesforce MVP and founder of blog salesforcepole.com and YouTube channel Salesforce I'm from Ajmer, Rajasthan, and currently I'm working as a senior Salesforce consultant. The agenda of this video will be to learn more about the ways through which we can debug our Lightning Web Component. Okay, so today we will learn about execution modes. So there are two execution modes available in your org. The default one is production mode and the other one is debug mode, in which you'll be able to get more details about what we are debugging, right? And I will also show you how you can enable this debug mode. The next one will be how you can use Chrome Dev tools and how you can debug with Lightning Web Security enabled. Lightning Web components are built using standard HTML and JavaScript, and on the desktop they run in a variety of supported browsers. You can use standard browser and JavaScript debugging tools, like we are using Chrome Dev tools from a long time, and using Chrome Dev tools we can debug our Lightning Web component. The easiest way to run and debug a Lightning Web component during development is to create a Lightning page, add your component to it, right? And then do the inspect element and use the Chrome Dev tools. So as I told you, there are two modes available while you are debugging your Lightning Web component. The first one is production mode and the second one is debug mode. So by default, the framework runs in production mode. This mode is optimized for performance. In production mode, JavaScript code is optimized and minified to reduce the size of the code to as few bytes as possible. Production mode removes line breaks, space, tabs, and code comments as well, and shorten the name of function and variables as well. So basically, it is little bit difficult to read the code in production mode. Let me show you an example of it. Okay guys, before sharing the example with you, there is a very important recent change which I would like to share here. So there are two ways through which you can debug. So first is the default using dev tools, where you will be getting default modules and everything. The second one is by enabling the Lightning Web Security. So recently in Winter 23 release, Salesforce has enabled that Lightning Web Security by default. So now if you will do inspect element and if you will go to source, you won't be able to see modules here. If you will notice, like here in Lightning, we usually, before this Winter 23 release, we used to have modules folder here in which we were able to see our modules. Like let's suppose if I'm having 5 components here on my screen, so I will be able to see those JavaScript files related to those 5 separate components. Okay, but now it will just show us a single event. This is just my page name, which you can see here. Okay, so to debug it based on your modules, first you have to disable that Lightning Web Security. Okay, so that is going to be an additional step you are going to perform while debugging this thing. So for that, you just need to go to setup, search for session setting. Okay, and here if you will scroll up, here is Lightning Web Security. So you just need to disable it. So previously it was not enabled by default. In previous releases, to we have to manually do that step, like if you would like to run the Lightning Web Security with it. But now after Winter 23 release, it is enabled by default. So we have disabled it now. Now you will see the difference here. Now to see your component, still here we are just able to see the page name here. But to see your components, you have to go to component tab here, then look for C folder, and here in C folder you will be able to see my components. Here I'm having child component, communication, child to parent component using function, and APIs as well. So there are total 6 components here in this screen, and now you can simply click on a specific component module and debug it. Okay, so here if you will notice, right now we are in production mode, so that's why the code is minified and it is little bit hard to read as well. So but still, like, if you would like to debug something in production mode, so you can use pretty print option in the Chrome dev tools to get minimal code formatting in production mode. For that you just need to click on these curly braces icon. If you can see my cursor here, so these are pretty print icon. Okay, so if you will click on it, so the code will be in a proper readable format, I would say, where you can simply read the code, what is going on behind the code, and you can put the debugger like this by clicking on it, and you can then debug your code as per your requirement. So this is a way to debug your Lightning Web Component. You can put multiple debuggers and debug your code accordingly, right? Now let me show you how you can use the debug mode. Okay, so let me continue with the slide. Okay, so this was our demo of production mode. So here on the left pane you can see, if you will not use that pretty print option to format your code, and how your code will look like. And after using that pretty print icon, this will be the format of your code. Okay, so make sure whenever you are debugging a Lightning Web Component, you hit on that pretty print icon to format your code, so it could be in a better readable format. All right, let's move to debug mode now. So in debug mode, JavaScript code is easier to read and debug. Okay, in debug mode we'll be getting some additional information as well, which I will show you in the next demo. The JavaScript source you see in dev tools looks similar to your uncompiled source code. Debug mode also adds more detailed output for some warnings and errors as well. After your user account is enabled for debug mode, you will be able to see these changes. So there will be a banner which will appear at the top to remind you that debug mode is on, and debug mode is going to basically slow things down. So it is not suggested like to turn it on, I mean forever. I mean, whenever you need to do the debugging, only in that case you should use the debug mode, and then you will be able to see the see this banner on top right. That means the debug mode is enabled. And here this will show you experience page time. This EPT's experience page time matrix appear in the page header. It is presented in green, orange or red to indicate the health of the page load time. So if it is green, page is loading good. If it is red, then something is definitely wrong in the page. And also a storage matrix in the page header shows kilobytes of data stored by the page to indicate memory uses and caching. The matrix is similar, color coded with green, orange or red. So if you will see the second matrix, which will display page size. So if the page size is too large and it is heavy to load, then it is going to be in orange or red color. But if the page size is as per the best practices, and if it is not that much, then it will be in the green background. Okay, so if we will see the same code with the debug mode turned on, so let me show you how it is going to be. So this was the code without the debug mode. Okay, and when you will turn on the debug mode, so the code will be more readable and in a proper format. Okay, so for that, let me show you how you can enable debug mode. Okay, so in Salesforce, from setup you can search for debug mode in quick find box. So for that you can simply go to setup, and you can search for debug mode here. Then there will be list of users for which you can enable debug mode. Okay, so for this demo, I will be enabling it for my primary user, which is my login user basically. So you just have to click on the checkbox and hit enable here. Okay, so it is enabled for this user. You can see the checkbox in debug mode is on now. The same way you will be able to disable it as well. And now if I will reload the page again, okay, so let me open it in a different tab. So here you are able to see the page load time and the page size as well on the top right corner of this page. And here if we will debug the code now, okay, so let's assume we need to check for a specific component. Okay, where are our components? So we will go in lightning events. Here it is. Let me just inspect a specific component. Okay, now if I'll go to source, so this is lightning. Components, then C folder. Here it is. So now if I will try to open the child component communication, okay, so here if you will notice, so this is also that same component, child component communication. Okay, let me show you some specific difference, which additional details we are getting here. So if you will compare this code side by side, so here you are getting some additional detail about function which are missing here, right? And apart from that, there are some other details available. So basically whenever you need to debug something in details, you can use this enable debug mode. Otherwise you can debug something in production mode as well. All right, let's get back to the slideshow again. Okay, so there are some specific uh, tips I would like to share here. So if you see only a few lines of code in JavaScript file, then debug mode is not enabled. If enabling debug mode does not reset the code in the code editor, in that case, you have to do a hard reload. With DevTools open, right click the browser reload button and then click hard reload. Okay, so using that way you will be able to hard reload your code as well in the browser. You should only enable debug mode for users who are actively debugging JavaScript, because Salesforce is slower for users who have debug mode enabled. So you should only enable it for those users who are in debugging thing, or maybe some developers who are doing the debugging stuff as well. So you should only enable this debug mode for those users. Okay. Now let me show you how you can use Chrome DevTools to debug something. So basically, Google Chromes include a very easy and excellent web development tool to debug your Lightning Web Component, and it is Chrome DevTools. These tools are great for debugging your Lightning Web Component. To get started, you just have to load the page, and then you have to open the DevTools by right clicking on it and go to inspect element again. Okay, so let me show you how you can check the debug mode again. So first let me just turn off this debug mode for this user. Okay, now the debug mode is off. Okay, so on Windows and Linux you can simply press Ctrl Shift I in your Google Chrome browser, and if you are using Mac, then you can use Option Command and I. Okay, so as I'm using Mac, so I will be using Option Command and I to open that inspect element stuff. Okay, or any other platform, you can simply press F12 or right click on the page and select inspect. To quickly find which line of code is failing in the source panel, enable the pause on all exceptions option in the DevTool debugger panel before running your code. So here if you will notice, there's a pause icon available in the panel, so you have to enable it. Okay, and here you can see pause on caught exception. So if you will click on this checkbox, so the code will be paused if there will be any exception in the code. So let's suppose if I will reload the page. Now while reloading the page, if there's an error. So if you'll notice, the code is paused on that specific error. Okay, now based on that thing, you can debug that specific line, specific code, right? And let's suppose, like, if you would like to skip it, then you can simply, pause and play the debugger here. You can resume script execution, or you can step over the next function. Okay, so using stepping over, you can just simply debug it even line by line, function by function. Or let's suppose, like, whenever you are having this kind of a script, you can simply click on this pretty print icon to format it in a readable way. So here you can see there is a DOM exception, failed to execute create event on document. The provide event type touch event is invalid. So basically I have used a event which is invalid, so that's why we are getting error here. In the source panel of Chrome Dev tool, you can find your Lightning Web component in the page pane. In the Lightning, so previously it was in Lightning, then there used to be a module folder for that. Okay, to get to that specific file, uh, you can search it in the Lightning. Then there was a module folder previously before this winter 23 release. Now if you would like to check it, you have to go to component, then in component you have to go to the C folder, and there you will be able to check that specific thing. Okay, let me show it to you. Let me just quickly close this thing. Okay, so in component you can go to the C folder and check for it. And here there's another major change I have noticed after winter 23. Okay, so previously there were two different places where you will be where you were able to find your code, like if your LWS is enabled or not. So if it is enabled, then your modules would be in this LWS folder here, as you can see, and then you have to go to C folder and search for the specific module. And if the LWS is disabled, then it is supposed to be directly in this lightning/n folder. Okay, and also, like, you were able to select a specific file by clicking on a function, by right clicking on a function and click on reveal in sidebar. But even though if it is enabled or disabled, you will be able to get your components, get your modules in component and in the C folder directly. So right now, let me refresh it once. Okay, so right now in our org, LWS is disabled. So here you are able to see 3, 4, 5, 6 components here. And let's go back to session setting and enable it. So this change has been recently made, like this was just introduced in winter 23. So maybe there are not that much information available, like what should happen if you will try to debug it with LWS enabled or not. Okay, so now LWS is enabled. Let me do a hard refresh as well. Okay, so I have done a hard refresh. So when LWS is enabled, you won't be able to see that LWS folder here. Instead of that, you can simply go to component, C folder, and you will be able to find all your components here, all your modules here. So that was the different in debugging when LWS is enabled or it is disabled, right? So these were the ways through which you will be able to debug your Lightning Web component. You will be able to find errors, and maybe you will be able to solve them as well. So that it is for today, guys. If you have any query related to debugging a Lightning Web component, then please leave a comment below. I will try to revert back as soon as possible. Also, if you like today's video, a subscribe to the channel will be awesome. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching.